We were encamped near the Little Bighorn River. Some of our horses were missing, so an Indian retraced the trail to search for them. We were unaware that the white soldiers were pursuing us. Scouts or advance men from the soldiers spotted the Indian searching for the horses. They chased after him, intending to kill him to prevent him from warning us. However, he outran them and returned to camp to inform us that the soldiers were approaching. At that moment, I was asleep in my lodge. The sun was high, near noon. I heard the alarm, but didn't believe it at first. I thought it was a false warning. It didn't seem possible that white men would attack us, given our strength. Our camp included the Cheyennes, Arapahoes, and 7 bands of Teton Sioux, a vast, innumerable gathering. Although I did not think it was a genuine alarm, I wasted no time preparing myself. Once I grabbed my weapon and stepped out of my lodge, the attack had already begun at the end of the camp, where Sitting Bull and the Hunkpapas were located. The warriors stood their ground to allow the women and children enough time to escape. By then, the herders were driving the horses into the camp, and since I was near the far end, I instructed my men to catch their horses and clear the area. My men quickly moved to assist those already engaged in the fight. Once the fighters ensured the women and children were safe, they fell back. At that point, my people joined in to support them, while the less experienced warriors and the women secured the horses. Together, we drove back the initial attacking party, forcing them to retreat to a nearby high hill. I then warned my people not to pursue too far, fearing an ambush. By this time, all the warriors in our camp were mounted and ready for battle. Another group then attacked us from the opposite direction, charging at us like a thunderbolt. Never before or since have I seen men so courageous and fearless as those white soldiers. We retreated to regroup, and once all our warriors were assembled, we launched a counterattack. I called out to my men, "This is a good day to die. Follow me." We gathered tightly together, ensuring no one fell behind, with each man urging another's horse forward. We charged directly at them. As we advanced, the white soldiers dismounted to fire at us. However, their aim was poor. Holding the reins of their frightened horses in one arm while shooting, the animals jerked them about, causing many of their shots to miss and go harmlessly into the air. The white soldiers held their ground courageously, and none attempted to flee. After all but 2 of them were killed, I managed to capture a pair of their horses. Then the elders and leaders of our people decreed that the body of the fallen white chief should not be harmed. They said he had fought with honor and bravery, and his remains deserved respect. After that, I turned back to join the fight against the other white soldiers who had retreated to a high ridge on the eastern side of the river. I cannot say whether any of Custer's men were taken as prisoners. By the time I returned to our camp, all of them were dead. The battle was chaotic from start to finish. I did not see General Custer himself, nor do I know who was responsible for his death. It wasn't until the fighting was over that we realized he was the white leader. We had no idea the soldiers were coming until the scout arrived and informed us. I do not claim that Reno was a coward. He fought well, but our warriors were defending their families and seeking to drive the soldiers back. If Reno's men had fought as fiercely as Custer and his men, the outcome might have been different. No white man or native ever fought as valiantly as Custer and his soldiers did. The following day, we engaged Reno's forces again and inflicted heavy losses on them. Then the leaders decided the soldiers had suffered enough and we should show mercy by letting them retreat. Soon after, we heard that another force, General Terry's command, was advancing along the river to confront us. While we prepared to face them, the elders and leaders advised that we had already fought enough and should avoid further conflict unless attacked. So, we gathered our women and children and withdrew. This concluded Low Dog's account, delivered in the presence of about half a dozen officers, some from the 17th Infantry and others from the 7th Cavalry, Custer's regiment. It was evening, the sun had gone down, and the twilight was growing darker. Among those present were officers who had been at the Bighorn alongside Benteen, the senior captain of the 7th, who often acted as a field officer. Benteen, along with his battalion, joined Reno on the first day of the battle after Reno's retreat and participated in the second day's combat. The setting was unusual and deeply fascinating. When Low Dog began his story, only Capt. Howe, the interpreter, and I were there, but as he continued, more officers gathered around, paying close attention to every word. Everyone seemed convinced that the Indian chief was sharing an honest account to the best of his knowledge. Someone asked how many native warriors had been killed during the battle. Low Dog replied, 38 died during the fight, and many more, I don't know the exact number, were wounded and later succumbed to their injuries. I've never seen a battle where such a high proportion of the wounded to the killed occurred, and where so many horses were injured. Another person inquired about the deceased warriors found in 2 teepees, 5 in one and 6 in the other, who were richly adorned, with their ponies also slain nearby. He explained that 8 of them were chiefs who had fallen in the battle. One of them was his own brother, sharing both his mother and father, but he did not know the identities of the other 2. The question was posed: what role did Sitting Bull play in the fight? Low Dog, who does not have a favorable opinion of Sitting Bull, replied with a sneer, if someone were to lend him courage, he might fight. Following this, Low Dog expressed a desire to return home and, accompanied by the interpreter, went back to the Indian camp. He is a tall, upright man, 34 years of age, with a decent appearance, well-defined features, and small hands and feet. He remarked that when armed and on the warpath, he regarded no man as his equal. However, upon surrendering, he set aside that sentiment. Now, in his humble and vulnerable state, should anyone attempt to chastise him, all he could do would be to declare that the person was no man, but a coward, something he would never have allowed anyone to say unchallenged while he was on the warpath. He recounted that at the age of 14, he first joined the warpath. I went against the wishes of my parents and those in authority over me. It was along a stream near the confluence of the Yellowstone River. We waged war against a group of Assiniboines who were hunting buffalo, and I took the life of one of their warriors. After we defeated that group, another band came to confront us, and I also killed one of them. When we returned to our people, I was given the title of chief, as no Sioux had ever achieved the feat of killing 2 enemies in a single battle at my age. I was also invited to join the councils of the chiefs and wise men. At that time, we never imagined we would have to fight against the white people. Then, I heard others talking about how the leader of the white people wanted the Indians to live where he decided and follow his instructions in exchange for food and clothing. I was brought into council with the chiefs and elders to discuss the matter. I questioned why I should allow anyone to control me or support me against my will when I had my own hands and was capable, no longer a boy. At that time, I never believed I would be compelled to either fight the white people or submit to their demands. When it became evident that we had to choose between surrendering or resisting, we held many councils. I asked, why should I be forced to live as a submissive man when I am a courageous warrior on my ancestral lands? The game, the hills, and the valleys are ours, and no white man has the right to dictate where I may go or what I may do. If any white man attempts to harm my possessions or seize my land, I will take up my weapon, mount my horse, and punish him. I never thought I would need to change that stance. But eventually, I realized that if I wanted to truly help my people, it would require wisdom and strategy rather than relying solely on conflict. Now I seek to understand the ways of the white people, as I see their strength surpasses ours, and their system of governance is more effective than ours. A group of young Native women, myself included, were gathering wild turnips when I noticed a plume of dust rising beyond a line of bluffs to the east. Turning towards camp, we saw a warrior riding at full speed, shouting that soldiers were only a short distance away. He urged the women, children, and elderly to flee to the hills in the opposite direction. Dropping the sharpened ash stick I had been using to dig turnips, I ran back to my teepee. Nearby, I saw my father running toward the horses. In a matter of moments, soldiers on horseback appeared on a bluff across the river. I watched my father, Crawler, preparing to head into battle. I sang a death song for my younger brother, One Hawk, who had already been killed. I hurried to a nearby thicket, retrieved my black horse, and painted my face with red. Braiding my black hair, I mourned. Though I was a woman, I felt no fear. By then, the soldiers had formed a battle line in the valley, about half a mile away. Suddenly, the crack of carbines echoed through the air, and bullets splintered tippy poles. Women and children fled from the gunfire in panic. Amid the chaos, I heard the elder men and women singing death songs for their warriors who were preparing to charge the soldiers. Those songs gave me courage. My father brought me my horse, and together we galloped toward the soldiers, joined by other warriors as we advanced. As we approached the edge of the forest, Hawkman gave the command to charge. The troopers were all dismounted. Their aim was precise as I saw Hawkman fall. The charge was so determined that the soldiers retreated to their horses and rode quickly toward the river, where the animals had to swim to cross. Some of the warriors pursued into the water, killing some soldiers and dismounting others. The warriors chased the fleeing soldiers across the river and up a bluff, before returning to the site of the battle to sing a song of triumph. Someone announced that another group of soldiers was launching an attack at the lower end of the village. I later learned that this group was led by Pehin Hanska, Long Hair. I rode toward that direction, raising my brother's war staff high above my head. Rain in the Face called out, "Look, there is a young woman among us. Let no young man ride behind her dress." We crossed the greasy grass at a shallow spot below a beaver dam, where the water was easier to ford, and encountered a large number of horses. One soldier was managing the reins of 8 or 10 horses. An Indian waved a blanket to startle the horses, causing them to scatter. On a ridge to the north, I observed men in blue uniforms retreating up a ravine, firing their weapons as they moved. The valley was heavy with the smoke of gunpowder. Long Hair's troops were surrounded. The Cheyennes attacked from the north, while Crow King led an assault from the south. After the fighting ended, the Indians gathered all the soldiers' gear and horses. We had no knowledge of the soldiers' identity until an interpreter explained they were from Fort Lincoln in Dakota Territory. Their saddle blankets bore crossed saber emblems and the number 7. Although the courageous men who came to confront us that morning were defeated, the cost was high for the Indians. More than 60 of our people had been killed, and their bodies were brought back to camp for scaffold burials. There was no victory dance that night. Instead, we grieved for our fallen. The following day, Sitting Bull's group dismantled our lodges and began the journey north to the Canadian border, where we stayed for 4 years until Sitting Bull finally surrendered at Fort Buford.